On 16th of November in 2008, Angus Flinch Lee checked into the Red Moor Hotel in Arizona, but he never checked out. 2 days later, the motel owner discovered his mutilated body. A recording of Angus's harrowing account was found on his laptop in the motel room. This is the recovered recording detailing Angus's own words of the horrors that came for his family and then came for him. A horror that has the means to not only lurk in the darkness but also fester in a realm between sleep and reality. This is Angus's story. I didn't believe much in curses or bad omens, but my great aunt Frieda did. We didn't visit her much when I was growing up, probably because she was presumed crazy, but I vividly remember the last time that we visited. Back then I was 8 years old. I had outgrown the theory that monsters lived under my bed, but I still believed in unexplained things, ones that gave me the heebie-jeebies. My great aunt lived on the top floor of an apartment block that seemed to soar into the clouds. My parents referred to it as the penthouse, but it was tiny. It was run down, stale-aired space with an out-of-order elevator. On arriving there after puffing up the stairs, we saw that the door was partly open. My parents called my aunt's name as we walked inside, noticing dozens of half-drunk coffee cups covering the tables and the workspaces. All of the mirrors had blankets and other coverings over them. And even though it was only early afternoon, all of the lamps and the light fittings were switched on, casting this run-down flat in fake light. Screams were shouted from the bathroom, and my dad ran in there while Mom hung back with me. He staggered backwards. He was knocking at least 3 coffee cups off the table. His face was twisted in this look of pure fright. And she emerged from the bathroom. A pair of bloody scissors gripped in her hand. My mom took one look and shielded my face beneath her arm. But it was all too late. I had already seen what my great aunt Frieda had done to herself. I had seen the bloody holes where her eyes used to be. Her hysterical laughter echoed around this small space as she cackled. He can't hurt me if I can't see him. The Hat Man can't hurt me anymore. My great aunt was taken to a psychiatric ward and died within that month. All I know about it is that she died in her sleep, the cause unknown, and no one seemed to question this at the time. They probably figured that it was better that way, an end to her pain. My family never mentioned her again, and we all carried on with our lives. At least, we did for a time. The truth is that death circled our family like a volt of vultures, picking us off one by one. We just didn't want to think about it because that would mean accepting that we were doomed to meet the same fate as great aunt Frieda. I only had a small family that I knew of anyway, especially on my dad's side. His parents, my grandparents, had both died when I was just a baby from suspected carbon monoxide poisoning. At least that's what I was told. They were found dead in their bed. And other than that, there was great aunt Frieda and my dad's brother, Hank. My parents divorced when I was 9, and no doubt what happened with my great aunt played a part in this, and as visits dwindled to just birthday and Christmas card, and then became nothing. My dad became as much of a stranger to me as Hank was. I grew up and I tried to carve some sort of life for myself. I was a freelance graphic artist and I enjoyed the freedom that this job brought me. It meant I could afford to rent a decent enough house in a pleasant area, and there was plenty of room if I ever met a partner to share my life with. Not that I seemed to be any good at doing that. I guess I was a creature of habit. I had never been a good sleeper. I'd always seen shadows in the corners of my room, and yeah, I just didn't sleep well. I preferred to work late and nap in bursts throughout the day. Women didn't tend to like this about me, and some had tried and failed to make me change my routine. It was about 3 a.m. when I got this call. I was on the third cup of black coffee, finishing up some work, and my phone buzzed. I didn't recognize the number, but I knew that area code was from Arizona, and I knew that is where my Uncle Hank lived. I answered it out of curiosity more than anything, my heart lurching when I heard that static voice speak on the other end. Angus, it's Hank, now listen to me. He got your dad. It's just you and me now. You never have kids, then you can't curse them with this. I thought it was a joke at first. I'd seen Hank only a handful of times in my life, and now he was muttering nonsense to me on the phone. There was something about his voice, though. Thinking back, it was the fear. His voice was riddled with it. I asked him where he was, who had gotten my dad. Static and breathing seemed to blend together, and then the line cleared enough for him to say, "Your dad is dead. He's coming for you, Angus, and you listen to me. The Hat Man is coming for you." As the line went dead, I dropped my cell phone and sat there shaking with dread. I hadn't heard anyone mention the Hat Man in over 20 years. I tried phoning my uncle back, but the call went straight to voicemail. I couldn't phone my dad, as I had no idea what his number was. I didn't know where he was living either, so I couldn't drive out and check on him. All I could do was sit there and stew in my own fear. I must have fallen asleep at some point, as I awoke to find my head stuck with sweat to my laptop lid. The shadows were flitting all around me in the winter early morning light, and my phone buzzing next to me on the couch. I couldn't move to begin with. Something that happened to me sometimes due to my sleep paralysis. It's a condition that caused my brain to wake up before my body. I saw it in the silver-framed mirror, a shadowy, faceless being with a long coat and a brimmed hat. Even though I couldn't see their eyes, I could feel them staring at me, their darkness seemingly boring into my soul. I blinked furiously, the only part of me I could move, and slowly the feeling tickled through my body, and I wiggled my fingers and my toes, and then I shuffled back on the couch. The shadow in the reflection had gone, and I was left convinced I'd drunk too much coffee and was imagining things. And through my frantic breaths and shakiness, I somehow managed to answer the phone, and the sense of dread returned when a detective spoke to me, informing me that my uncle and my dad were both dead. His other words were blurred in the background of my turmoil. I caught extracts of them, enough to piece the story together. Uncle Hank had found my dad dead in his bed, so unable to contain his grief, he'd smashed all the mirrors and the windows only to fall to his death. Words, that's all they were to me. Horrifying words in my disbelieving mind. A haze of time followed. I don't know if I called Mom, or if she called me, but she begged me not to go to my dad's apartment and not to go anywhere near their bodies. I'm not sure if I agreed or not. I'm not sure what I did. I hadn't seen Uncle Hank or my dad in years. They were strangers to me, yet this tragedy that had unfolded to them made me feel numb. Hank had called me the same day that he died. The Hat Man. He mentioned the Hat Man. I thought of the shadow in the brimmed hat I had seen in the mirror. In all my years of sleep paralysis, I'd never seen any shadows like that before. I told myself it was trauma, suppressed from seeing Great Aunt Frieda's empty, bloody eye sockets. A trauma that resurfaced when Uncle Hank rang me in his frantic state and mentioned the Hat Man, so I wasn't losing it. I was just under a lot of strain. I gulped back 3 or 4 black coffees, and with my eyes twitching in alertness, I carried on with my work. I spent hours staring at that screen, distracting myself from the truth. And then the truth found me as I looked at that screen, taking in my work. And in the background of the image I just designed was a shadowy figure wearing a coat of darkness and a brimmed hat. I traced my finger over that image, not understanding why I designed such a thing. I erased my work. I closed my laptop lid, telling myself I needed to take a break and try to get a grip on reality. My dad and uncle were both dead, and as estranged to them as I was, I still needed to process this. I left my house and I went for a walk. It was dark out, but not pitch black, and it was too quiet to feel serene. I'd wandered into the twilight hour. I walked and I walked, aimless footsteps that led me past flickering lampposts and into the deserted park, and I collapsed right there on a bench. My teeth were chattering from the cold as my mind and my body gave up. I was running on empty, and as a result, my eyelids drooped and I fell asleep. The nightmare plagued me. A shadow man wearing a brimmed hat loomed over a man with no face. I recognized those tufts of dark hair and pokey ears. This faceless man was me. I woke up frantic, but unable to do anything but flicker open my eyes. I had eyes at least, but I needed to check I still had a face. I silently screamed inside my head for my body to wake the hell up. A shadow stood out in the dusk gray around me, and they leaned over me, and they reached out to touch my leg. I couldn't feel them, I couldn't feel a thing, but I could see them. I could feel their unseen eyes staring straight at me. And as the feeling returned to my body, I clawed at the air. I was fighting off the shadowy figure I was certain had just touched my leg. Nothing was there, but I still sensed it. I knew it was there, somewhere, watching me. I rushed home. I gulped down a couple of black coffees. I filled a flask for the road, and then packed my laptop and some spare clothes into my backpack. I didn't know what was happening to me, but I thought that maybe if I saw my dad and my uncle's bodies, then I'd have some sort of closure. It took me about 7 hours to get to Arizona, where it turns out my dad had been living too from my home in San Diego. I made sure I was fueled by coffee as I drove along the freeway. The cop had emailed me information about which mortuary the bodies were at, and I reached it pretty much as it opened, and I pleaded my case to be allowed in. I didn't know what I expected to find. The woman at the reception made it clear to me that seeing their dead bodies could be a shock to the system, especially my uncle's, due to the impact of his fall. I convinced her that I knew this, but I needed to say goodbye. That room was cold. It was colder than I expected it to be, even though it made sense, being a home of death. I counted 5 metal gurneys with sheets covering bodies. The mortician pulled back one of the sheets, revealing my dad's corpse, drained of color, and I staggered back, almost toppling into one of the other gurneys. His cheeks sunken as though the life had been sucked out of him. His face was twisted in pure fear, a look I'd only seen on his face once before, back in Great Aunt Frieda's apartment after she gouged her own eyes out. I needed to get out of there. I needed air. I charged out of that room, bashing into gurneys as I went. The cover fell off one body, my uncle's. I saw his mangled limbs and his saggy skin covering crushed bones, and his face was the same as my dad, sunken, twisted in fear. I felt stupid for thinking this would make everything better. Seeing them had only made it worse. I was tired and tormented by my own thoughts. I hadn't slept properly in, I don't know, probably years. Suddenly, all my eyes wanted to do was close. I tried drinking more coffee, but it didn't seem to work. I was losing my grip on reality. I couldn't drive like that, so I checked into a cheap motel. I didn't know if it was day or not. All I knew was that something had gotten to my dad and my uncle. The same thing, I think, that had gotten to Great Aunt Frieda. Uncle Hank had told me not to have children. He mentioned the Hat Man, and he'd been trying to warn me. I was sure of that. I just didn't know what I was dealing with or how to go about stopping it. The coffee wasn't working, but maybe something else would. Pain. Maybe pain would keep me awake. I acted on impulse, slamming my hand into the bathroom door as hard as I could. That pain seemed to tremor through me, and I shrieked as I laughed. I had to stay awake, so I slammed it again and again. Realizing what I'd done, I swore as I rushed into the bathroom searching for something to bind my messed up hand. The oval mirror seemed to shimmer that seemed to flicker with darkness, a shadow. No, you can't have me. You can't take me. I yelled as I shoved my side against the mirror, cracking it into countless shards. Go away. Go away. I crashed onto the floor, my head knocking against a sink as I fell, and in my dreams, I ran from the Shadow Man. He curled his long, shadowy body around the corners of my mind and chased me through it. I gained consciousness on the bathroom floor, a mix of blood and broken glass surrounding me, stagnant in the grainy light. I couldn't move. All I could do was stare helplessly in front of me, and I saw it flicker in the broken mirror, a contorted shadow man wearing a brimmed hat. My fear escalated inside of me, but it wouldn't come out. I was nothing more than a statue who had no choice but to watch on as the shadow formed outside of the mirror fragments and started to move toward me. I felt his eyes on me even though I couldn't see them. The shadow grew closer and closer to me until it seemed to absorb me within its darkness, and all I could see was the blank place where its face should be, where I couldn't see anything at all. Even in my paralyzed state, I felt the life seeping out of me. It felt like I couldn't breathe, like this thing was taking the air, filling my lungs from me, until I was a sunken mass of what I used to be. I must have regained use of my body before my brain caught up, as by the time I realized what I was doing, it was too late. I felt the shard of glass clutched in my slippery hand and my eyes. I couldn't see anymore. The pain was endless, a burning, ending never. I dropped that glass and I made myself touch my eyes, or at least the gaps where they used to be. I screamed out in continuous fury. I couldn't see the Hat Man anymore. He couldn't come for me. Angus Flinch Lee's body was discovered 2 days later on 18th November 2008. He was so bloodied and injured that police had to use denture records to confirm his identity. Police reports state his cause of death as suicide brought on by extreme paranoia, hallucinations, and grief. Tests showed no drugs, including antihistamines, were found in his system, which studies have proven can correlate to sleep paralysis and hallucinations. However, high levels of caffeine were found, which is known to cause similar effects. There have been many sightings of shadow people and the Hat Man over the years. In the present day, forums now exist for people to share their terrifying encounters. Angus's mom, Helen Deakins, claims that her ex-husband never recovered from his aunt's death and fabricated stories of shadow men. This led to their divorce, and he chose to distance himself from Angus in a bid to protect him, and she gave permission for this recording to be shared, and believes that Angus would never have taken his own life. Perhaps there are shadow people that lurk in the realms between sleep and reality, sending them into madness and sucking the life out of them. Perhaps horrors exist beyond our comprehension, horrors like the Hat Man. They say if you speak his name, he starts to notice you, but if you don't share the video, maybe he already has. Keep the story going. Like, comment, and subscribe before he visits you. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think. See you in the next video.